Look up. Imagine the sky not as you know it, but with enormous shining arcs stretching from horizon to horizon. Instead of a plain blue during the day and a scattered field of stars at night, the heavens are dominated by colossal rings, shimmering bands of ice and rock circling our world. If Earth had rings like Saturn, human life, culture, and history would have been forever transformed. This isn't just a scientific thought experiment. It's a journey into what everyday existence might feel like under skies so magnificent, so permanent, that no one could ever ignore them. From the moment you wake up, the rings would be there. If you live near the equator, they'd cut right across the sky, rising out of one horizon like a celestial wall and arching overhead in glowing layers. They'd be bright enough to see even in daylight, white and silver streaks painted across the blue, sometimes tinted gold or pink depending on the angle of the sun. At night, they would shine like a giant lamp in the heavens, reflecting sunlight back toward Earth. Nights would never be truly dark again. Even on the deepest midnight, the rings would cast a faint glow, washing out many stars. Imagine walking home late at night and seeing the ground around you faintly lit, not by street lamps or the moon, but by Earth's own shining crown. Children would grow up never knowing a normal sky. Every crayon drawing of a house would have the rings arching over the roof. Every school globe would be topped not only with continents, but with a miniature illustration of Earth's bands. Kids would learn early that the equator gives you the best view, entire arcs dominating the heavens, while the further you travel toward the poles, the thinner they appear until they vanish entirely. That difference alone would shape geography and culture. Equatorial cities might become centers of tourism and pilgrimage, drawing people who want to see the rings in their full splendor. Nations at the poles, where the rings are barely visible, might weave entire myths about why the heavens look incomplete. Religion and mythology would be unrecognizable compared to what we know today. Ancient Egyptians might have carved the rings into the walls of temples, calling them the eternal path of the gods. The Mayans, obsessed with the skies, might have used the changing shadows of the rings as calendars more precise than anything we could imagine. In Norse mythology, the shimmering arcs could have been seen as Bifrost itself, the bridge between Midgard and Asgard. Even Christianity might have depicted angels not only in glowing halos, but against a backdrop of divine arcs stretching endlessly across the heavens. Every culture would fold the rings into its identity. Festivals would be held during times when the rings glowed brightest. Poetry, songs, and legends would constantly return to the eternal crown that circled the world. But beyond culture, the rings would have shaped human survival. Their constant reflection of sunlight back toward Earth would change the planet's climate in strange, uneven ways. Parts of the tropics might cool slightly as the rings block some direct sunlight. Certain regions might live under semi-permanent twilight for a portion of the year, creating deserts in some places and lush growth in others. Farmers would have learned to plant crops not only according to the seasons, but according to the shifting shadows the rings cast across the land. Whole economies could rise or collapse depending on how those shadows moved. Think about sleep itself. Humans evolved under cycles of light and darkness, but in a ringed world, the nights would never be as black as they are here. Instead, generations of humans might have slept under skies that glowed faintly white. Perhaps we'd need thicker blinds and darker shelters to rest properly. Or maybe our bodies would have adapted to shorter nights, changing human circadian rhythms entirely. Would we even see stars the same way? With the Milky Way drowned out by Earth's glowing crown, astronomy might have developed slower. Galileo, instead of studying Jupiter's moons, might have spent his life charting the endless complexities of Therings above his own head. Entire constellations might have gone unnoticed for millennia. Fast forward to the modern world. Picture New York City with the rings arcing overhead, neon lights reflecting off silver bands in the sky. Imagine Tokyo at night, where the rings outshine billboards and skyscrapers. Artists, photographers, and filmmakers would use them constantly. You couldn't shoot a romance, a war film, or a music video without deciding how the rings should appear in the frame. They'd become a backdrop to human emotion. Weddings under the glowing arcs would be considered the height of romance. Songs would sing of silver skies, Nations would compete to use the rings in their flags and symbols. Just as the crescent moon has shaped flags and faiths across our own history, the rings would have been humanity's universal emblem. Daily life would be different in subtle but powerful ways. You might look out your kitchen window in the morning and see sunlight scattering through the icy bands, creating shimmering colors in the air. Pilots would navigate not only by landmarks on the ground, but by the ever-present position of the rings in the sky. Children might dream of one day traveling up to the arcs themselves, gazing at the sparkling rivers of ice that seemed so close yet impossibly far. And lovers might walk beneath the glowing heavens, whispering that no matter how temporary their lives may be, the rings are eternal. But of course, not everything would be beautiful. Technology would struggle with constant interference. Thousands of satellites would be impossible to launch if the rings blocked their orbits. GPS might never exist, or would be confined to ground-based systems. Communications satellites, weather tracking, even space exploration would be forced to adapt. The International Space Station, if it were ever built at all, might have had to orbit in fragmented arcs between gaps in the rings, or humanity might never have reached orbit at all. Imagine living in a world where space travel is far more dangerous, where every rocket must dodge not only debris, but billions of icy fragments constantly circling Earth. Perhaps we would still dream of the stars, but they would feel infinitely further away. And there would be danger. Every so often, a fragment of the rings might break loose and fall toward Earth, burning through the atmosphere as a spectacular meteor shower. Children would watch the skies, pointing out streaks of light that were once part of the great arcs above. But larger fragments could be catastrophic. A rock the size of a car falling from the rings could wipe out an entire city. Entire belief systems might form around these fiery events, with people wondering if the heavens were punishing humanity for daring to live beneath such beauty. Still, we would adapt. Just as we've built earthquake-proof cities and hurricane-ready coastlines, humanity would have learned to live with the risks of ringfall. Governments might fund entire agencies devoted to monitoring and predicting when fragments might collapse, sending alerts to evacuate regions before impact. In fact, such threats might have driven humanity toward global cooperation far earlier. Perhaps we would have formed something like the United Nations centuries before our timeline, united under the common goal of surviving beneath Earth's glittering but dangerous crown. Culturally, the rings would be impossible to ignore. Think about holidays. Imagine New Year's Eve, where instead of fireworks alone, entire skylines glow against a backdrop of shimmering arcs. Imagine Valentine's Day, marketed with images of couples holding hands under glowing silver heavens. Imagine National Independence Days, military parades, religious gatherings, all set against skies so magnificent they would seem to belong not to any one nation, but to all of humanity. The rings would become a symbol not only of beauty, but of shared existence, something no one could claim, no one could own, but everyone could admire. And then there's art. Michelangelo painting not just the Sistine Chapel ceiling, but frescoes of angels flying between silver arcs. Shakespeare writing about love under eternal rings. Monet painting water lilies under glowing skies. Van Gogh's Starry Night would never exist. The Milky Way drowned in white arcs, but perhaps he would paint Ringlit Night, swirls of silver and gold across a world that never slept in darkness. Every masterpiece you know would look different. Every song lyric would be altered. Every story would unfold under different skies. Perhaps the greatest change, though, would be psychological. Living under rings might make humanity feel less isolated. On our Earth, the sky often feels empty, endless, indifferent. But in a ringed world, the heavens would always appear full, alive, impossibly present. The rings would remind us daily that Earth is unique, that our home is crowned with beauty the rest of the solar system can only envy. That sense of wonder might make us more humble, more unified. Or perhaps it would do the opposite. Perhaps wars would be fought over interpretations of what the rings mean, or which nation had the best view. Ultimately, a ringed Earth would be both paradise and challenge. Our myths would be richer, our art more dazzling, our religions more celestial. Our nights brighter, our stars fewer. Our technology more complicated, our space exploration more dangerous. We would live beneath beauty so overwhelming that we might forget the sky was ever meant to be empty. And maybe, just maybe, living under rings would change how we see ourselves, not just as individuals, not just as nations, but as a species forever bound to the crown in the sky. So the next time you look up at the plain blue heavens, or the dark night dotted with stars, imagine what it would be like if those skies were never empty. Imagine a world where Earth itself wore a crown, where every sunrise and sunset was framed by silver arcs, where human life unfolded beneath a spectacle so constant, so beautiful, that it would shape everything we are. If Earth had rings like Saturn, we would never stop looking up.